Her husband said he was working overtime at the office until morning, but his GPS location had stopped at the Grand Hilton downtown. He told her, "Do not wait up for me." She drove there anyway, her heart a stone in her chest, and knocked on the door of room 303. The door opened slowly. The third-floor hallway of the luxury hotel was cold and silent, as if the air conditioning had been deliberately set to freeze the blood of anyone who walked through it. The thick, maroon carpet muffled the sound of Claire's footsteps, but it could not silence the thunder in her chest. Her heart beat so fast it felt like it was trying to break through her ribs with a painful rhythm. Claire stood frozen at the corner of the hall, staring blankly at the door to room 303, just 30 feet from where she stood. She clutched her phone so tightly her knuckles turned white. The flat device had just vibrated in her hand. The name Mark was displayed clearly on the dimly lit screen. "Take a breath, Claire. Take a breath." With a trembling hand, she slid the green icon across her phone's screen. She pressed the device to her ear, trying to make her voice sound as normal as possible. She had to sound like the obedient wife sitting sweetly in the living room of their home, not the wife standing outside the hotel room where her husband was having an affair. "Hello, honey," Claire said softly. She bit her lower lip, holding back a sob that almost escaped. Mark's baritone voice, the voice that once made her feel safe, came through the line. Now it sounded foreign and full of deceit. There was an edge of irritation he could not hide. "Claire, you are not asleep yet?" Mark asked. There was no concern in his voice, only annoyance. "I told you this afternoon not to wait up for me. Work is insane right now. The client demanded a revision on the big project proposal tonight. I have to pull an all-nighter." Claire closed her eyes. The lie slipped so smoothly from her husband's mouth. There was no pause, no hesitation, as if lying had become second nature to the man she had been married to for 5 years. "Oh, is that right, honey?" Claire answered quietly. Her eyes shot back to the door of room 303. From the crack beneath it, she could see the glow of a bright light. "But have you had dinner? Do you want me to order you something to the office through DoorDash?" "No need." Mark refused quickly, his tone a little too sharp. He cleared his throat, as if realizing his reaction was too much. "I mean, the guys from the office already ordered food. We all ate together. You should just go to sleep. And please stop calling. I am trying to focus. My concentration is shot. If I keep answering your calls, when will this work get done?" Warm tears began to trace paths down Claire's cheeks, a stark contrast to the hotel's cold air. Her husband was such a masterful actor. If Claire had not activated the location tracking on Mark's Google account, which he had forgotten to log out of on the home laptop, she might have actually gone to sleep tonight feeling guilty for disturbing her hard-working husband. "I am sorry, honey. I was just worried you would get sick if you ate late," Claire said, her voice trembling almost imperceptibly. But to Mark's ears, it probably sounded like the quiver of sleepiness. Yeah, okay. I am hanging up now. Do not forget to lock the front door." The call ended abruptly. Claire's phone screen went dark. She slowly lowered her hand. Silence once again enveloped the hallway, but this time it felt more menacing. Mark thought he had just hung up on his foolish wife at home. Mark thought he was safe inside the fortress of room 303. Claire wiped her tears with the back of her hand. Enough. She had cried enough at home this afternoon when she saw Mark's location stop at this hotel. Now was not the time for tears. Now was the time for proof. Claire stepped forward. 1 step, 2 steps. Her legs felt heavy, as if weighted with lead, but a strange strength born of anger propelled her. She remembered everything. The flirtatious texts she had glimpsed on Mark's phone last week while he was in the shower. Disgusting messages from a contact named Autoshop, whose contents had nothing to do with cars. Messages full of longing and promises of a secret meeting. Claire arrived directly in front of room 303. The dark brown wooden door looked solid, hiding a great sin behind it. She could hear faint sounds from within. Laughter, her husband's laughter, a laugh that had long since vanished from their home. A laugh that Mark now gave to another woman. Claire's blood boiled. She quickly fixed her hair, taking a deep breath to fill her lungs, which felt tight and constricted. She took out her phone again, activated the video recorder, and slipped it into her jacket pocket with the camera lens peeking out. She needed proof. She would not let Mark deny it again like he always did. Claire's right hand rose, her knuckles clenched in the air. Knock, knock, knock. 3 firm knocks, not hesitant ones. The laughter inside instantly ceased. A moment of silence. Then, the sound of footsteps approached the door. Heavy, familiar footsteps. "Room service?" Mark's voice came from behind the door, slightly muffled. His tone was relaxed, even a little playful. Claire did not answer. She just stood tall, staring at the peephole, though she knew Mark could not see her from there because she was standing slightly to the side, out of its range. She heard the sound of an electronic lock disengaging. Click. The door handle moved down. The door slowly opened, revealing a widening gap. The bright light from inside the room spilled out, momentarily dazzling Claire's eyes. And there he was. Mark, standing in the doorway wearing only boxer shorts and a thin t-shirt, a smile ready to greet a hotel employee. But that smile instantly vanished, replaced by a face so pale it looked as if all the blood had been drained from his body. His eyes widened, his mouth opened, but no sound came out. Time seemed to stop as their gazes met. Claire did not scream. She did not curse. She just stared at her husband with a cold gaze that pierced him to the bone. From behind Mark's back, the sweet voice of a woman approached. "Who is it, babe? What is taking so long?" A young woman with messy, flowing hair appeared, wearing one of Mark's oversized dress shirts as a nightgown. She peeked over Mark's shoulder, and when she saw Claire standing there, a small gasp caught in her throat. Time seemed to freeze in the doorway of room 303. Each second crawled by, as painful as a drop of acid on wounded skin. Before Claire, Mark stood rigid. His face, once bright with laughter, was now a pitiful mask of terror. His mouth opened and closed like a fish out of water, trying to form words, but not a single sound escaped his throat. The woman behind Mark, Sarah, took a step back. Her face was ashen. She recognized Claire. Of course, she recognized Claire. A large family photo sat on Mark's desk at work, a desk where Sarah surely stood often to give reports or simply flirt with her boss. With a clumsy, trembling motion, Sarah pulled the collar of the man's shirt tighter, trying to cover her exposed neck, as if the thin fabric could hide the sin they had committed. "Claire." Mark's voice finally emerged, hoarse and broken. "What? What are you doing here?" The question sounded so stupid to Claire's ears. Why was she here? Claire wanted to laugh, to scream, to slap her husband's face until it was red, but strangely her body did not move to commit any violence. An anger so immense had made her calm. A deadly calm. Claire did not answer. She just stood tall, letting the camera lens in her pocket do its work, recording everything. Recording the cold sweat that began to bead on Mark's temple. Recording the half-empty bottle of wine on the nightstand behind them. Recording the hotel bed with its rumpled sheets, recording Sarah's terrified face, which still held a faint aura of victory. The aura of a woman who felt she had won another woman's husband. "Honey, listen to me." Mark took a step forward, his hand reaching for Claire's shoulder. "This is not what you think. We were just discussing presentation materials." Sarah spilled coffee on herself. "That is why she is wearing my shirt. I swear, honey." The lie came again. So fast, so ridiculous. Claire brushed Mark's hand away with a gentle but firm motion. She looked deep into her husband's eyes. The gaze that was usually full of love and obedience was now empty, as cold as ice. Claire smiled. Not the sweet smile she usually gave when welcoming Mark home from work, but a smirk full of contempt. She did not say a word. She just raised an eyebrow slightly, glanced at Mark's company name badge, still pinned to the pocket of the shirt Sarah was wearing, and then looked back into Mark's eyes. That silent gesture was more of a slap than 1,000 curses. Mark froze, his courage instantly shriveling. He was used to dealing with a submissive, naive Claire. He was not prepared for this Claire, the one who looked at him as if he were trash to be thrown away. Without warning, Claire turned on her heel. She turned her back on the disgusting scene. "Claire, wait! Do not go!" Mark called out in a panic. He tried to chase her, stepping out of the hotel room in just his boxer shorts. Claire did not stop. Her footsteps were firm against the hallway carpet. She walked straight toward the elevator, not looking back even as she heard Mark's hesitant steps behind her. Mark would not dare chase her all the way to the lobby in that state of undress. The reputation of a polite, young professional that he had carefully built was too precious to be destroyed by a messy scandal in a hotel hallway. And just as she predicted, Mark's steps halted at his room's doorway. "Claire, listen to me. When you get home, we will talk this out," Mark shouted. His voice echoed in the empty hall. It sounded desperate, but also contained the familiar tone of command he always used with her. The elevator doors opened. Claire stepped inside. She pressed the L button with a finger that was now trembling violently. As the metal doors slowly closed, she could see Mark in the distance, holding his head in frustration, while Sarah peeked out from behind the door with a worried face. The doors shut completely. Silence. As soon as the elevator began its descent, Claire's defenses crumbled. Her legs gave out instantly. She slid down, leaning against the cold wall of the elevator, clutching her chest, which ached tremendously. It felt as if all the oxygen had been sucked out of the metal box. The tears she had held back with all her might now flooded her cheeks in a silent torrent. She cried without a sound, her mouth wide open in a silent scream, releasing the pain that was tearing her soul apart. The image of Mark and Sarah in that room replayed in her head like a broken record. Their clothes, the faint scent of perfume she had caught, their panicked expressions, it was all real. The bad feelings she had been dismissing, the suspicions she had considered mere paranoia, were the naked truth. Ding. The elevator doors opened on the ground floor. Claire quickly wiped her tears, took a deep breath, and put on her mask of indifference again. She walked swiftly through the quiet lobby, ignoring the curious stare of the night receptionist who saw her leaving with swollen eyes. Once inside her car, parked in a dark corner of the lot, Claire did not start the engine right away. She took the phone from her jacket pocket. Her hand shook violently as she stopped the video recording. Duration: 3 minutes and 12 seconds. She replayed it. The image quality was sharp. Mark's face was clear. Sarah's face was clear. The room number, 303, was clear. A text notification broke the silence in the car. Her phone screen lit up. The name Mark appeared. Claire opened the message. Her heart ached as she read its contents. It was not a sincere apology, not a confession of sin. The message contained a sentence that made Claire's blood boil to the very core, burning the last remnants of her love to ashes. Mark, do not be childish. Come home now, and do not you dare tell my mother or anyone else. You misunderstood, and I did not appreciate your disrespectful attitude back there. We will settle this at home. Claire stared at her phone with a burning gaze. Misunderstood, disrespectful. After being caught red-handed, her husband still had the audacity to threaten her and twist the facts. Claire threw her phone onto the passenger seat. She gripped the steering wheel so hard her knuckles turned white. Her sadness slowly evaporated, replaced by something far more dangerous, a determination to destroy. She started the car. The engine's roar shattered the night's silence. Claire would not go home to her parents to complain. No, she would go home to their house. She would wait for Mark there. A war had just begun, and Mark had no idea that the opponent he was facing was no longer the obedient wife he had known for years. The clock on the living room wall showed 2:30 a.m. Its ticking sounded deafeningly loud to Claire, echoing the chirping of crickets from the backyard. Claire sat silently at the dining table, accompanied by a cup of tea that had gone cold 2 hours ago. She had deliberately turned off the main lights, leaving only the dim glow from a corner lamp that cast long, eerie shadows. The sound of a car engine purred softly as it entered the garage. Its headlights briefly cut through the front window, sweeping across Claire's pale face before being extinguished. Mark was home. Claire did not move. She remained seated, her hands clasped together on the cold oak table. She heard the front door open and then lock again. Mark's heavy footsteps entered the house. He paused at the entrance to the dining room, noticing his wife sitting in the darkness. "You are still up?" Mark asked, his voice flat, devoid of guilt. He walked closer, tossing his briefcase onto the sofa, then loosened his tie with a rough gesture, as if he were the most exhausted person in the world. Claire stared at her husband. Mark had changed clothes. The The dress shirt he had been wearing, the one Sarah had also worn at the hotel, was gone. He was now wearing a casual polo shirt that he always kept in the trunk of his car as a spare. His hair was slightly damp, and the distinct smell of hotel soap wafted sharply as he passed by her. He had showered. He had washed away the traces of another woman from his body. "I am waiting for your explanation, Mark." Claire's voice was barely a whisper. Mark sighed heavily, a feigned sigh meant to show how burdened he felt by this drama. He pulled out a chair across from Claire, sat down with his legs spread, and stared at his wife with a sharp, intimidating gaze. "What explanation, Claire?" "What you saw was just a misunderstanding," Mark said firmly. He leaned forward. "You know how important that Miami resort project is for my career, right? Sarah is the project manager's assistant. She accidentally spilled hot coffee on her shirt when we were revising the budget. She did not have a change of clothes. Was I supposed to let her sit in a meeting with a wet, sticky shirt? I lent her my shirt because it was all I had. It was a humane gesture, honey, not an affair." Claire gasped in disbelief. The story sounded so neat, so plausible to an outsider, but it was laughable to a wife who had seen the look in their eyes just hours before. "In a hotel room, just the two of you, in the middle of the night?" Claire asked, her voice beginning to rise. "Why not in the lobby? Why did it have to be in a room?" "Because the lobby is noisy. We needed to concentrate," Mark snapped, cutting her off. "And that room? It is a company-rented room for the team to use. It was not just me in there. Another staff member had just stepped out to get food when you arrived. You showed up at the wrong time with your dirty mind and made a cheap, dramatic scene." Mark stood up and began to pace around the table, like a predator circling its prey. He started playing the victim. "I am disappointed in you, Claire." "Really disappointed," Mark continued, shaking his head. "I am working my tail off, pulling all-nighters, my head about to explode thinking about company targets so you and Leo can live comfortably. And what do I get in return? You follow me. You suspect me. You have no respect for your husband's privacy." The words slid out like venom, paralyzing logic. Mark gave Claire no room to argue. He kept attacking, twisting the facts until Claire began to doubt her own sanity. Was there really another staff member? Was it really just about a change of clothes? "You tracked my phone, did not you?" Mark accused suddenly, pointing a finger at Claire's face. "How else would you know I was at that hotel unless you tracked my GPS? That is a criminal act, Claire. That is crazy. You are sick. Your obsession with me is not healthy. You need a psychiatrist if you keep this up." Claire's tears fell again, not from sadness, but from overwhelming frustration. She desperately wanted to show him the video on her phone to silence her husband's poisonous mouth, but her instincts held her back. If she played that ace now, while Mark was on the attack, he would surely snatch the phone and destroy it. Claire knew how volatile Mark could be when cornered. "I saw how happy you were earlier," Claire whispered, ignoring his accusations. "You were laughing." "That was not the laugh of someone stressed about work." Mark laughed cynically. "Oh, so now a husband is not allowed to laugh? I have to be frowning all the time to keep my wife happy. Where is your logic, Claire?" Mark moved closer and knelt beside her chair. He changed his tactic. His face softened, his hand reached for her cold one. The touch made Claire's skin crawl with disgust, but she let him. "Listen, honey." Mark's voice lowered. It sounded persuasive but was filled with manipulation. "Sarah is a fun colleague. She understands the pressure I am under. It is normal for us to joke a little to relieve stress. Do not be blindly jealous of her. She is a career woman, educated, with high standards. She would never want someone else's husband. Do not degrade yourself by feeling threatened by her." The statement was subtle but insulting. Indirectly, Mark was saying that Claire, a stay-at-home mom, was not on the same level as Sarah. Mark stood up and kissed the top of her head briefly. A Judas kiss. "Enough of this. I am exhausted. I have another presentation tomorrow morning. Let us just pretend tonight never happened. Erase all those negative thoughts. And if you happen to take any pictures or videos, delete them now. Do not embarrass our family by spreading lies." Mark walked toward the master bedroom without looking back, leaving Claire alone in the dark dining room. Claire watched her husband's back disappear behind the bedroom door. Her chest felt incredibly tight. Mark's explanation was full of holes, full of lies. The other staff member getting food. There were no other shoes outside the room. The coffee stain. The shirt Sarah wore was perfectly clean. Mark thought he had won. He thought he had successfully made Claire feel guilty and shut her up. Claire picked up her phone from the table. She opened the gallery and stared at the thumbnail of the 3-minute video. Her finger hovered over the delete icon for a moment. The temptation to return to a quiet life of pretending to be happy was immense. But the image of Sarah's mocking smile from behind Mark's back reappeared. No, Claire did not delete it. Instead, her finger moved nimbly, pressing the upload button. She did not upload it to social media. That would be too reckless. She uploaded the video to her cloud storage, a secret Mark did not even know she had. Just as the upload finished, her phone vibrated. A text message. Claire frowned. Who would be texting at this hour? It was not from Mark. The message was from an unknown number. No profile picture. A strange number. Hello, the beautiful Mrs. Thompson. Too bad our meeting was so brief. Please do not be too hard on Mark. He is so tired from working with me. Oh, and next time you want to visit, please knock politely. Do not startle us. Claire's blood boiled. The message ended with a winking smiley face emoji. It was from Sarah. The woman was openly challenging her. Claire stared at her phone with a burning gaze. The message from Sarah was like gasoline poured onto the fire raging in her heart. The woman had not only taken her husband but was now casually stomping on her dignity. Sarah's audacity in sending such a message pointed to one certain thing. She felt she had the upper hand. She felt she had Mark's full support, a support that made her position untouchable by the legal wife she considered weak. Claire did not reply. She knew any angry response from her would only become fodder for Sarah and Mark's amusement later. She blocked the number after taking a screenshot as additional evidence. The sun began to rise, sending pale orange rays through the gaps in the dining room curtains. Claire realized she could not just sit here. Today was Wednesday. As usual, she had to prepare breakfast, get the school uniform ready for Leo, their 7-year-old son, and pretend that their world was perfectly fine. Claire stood up. She forced her aching legs toward the kitchen. She began cracking eggs, chopping onions, turning on the stove. The sizzle of hot oil sounded foreign to her ears this morning. Usually she cooked with a little hum, imagining the happy faces of her husband and son. But today, every movement felt mechanical, like a robot programmed to serve without a soul. At 6 a.m., Mark emerged from the bedroom. He was neatly dressed in a crisp, navy blue suit. His face was fresh, as if the drama of the previous night and his early morning return had never happened. He even whistled softly as he sat at the dining table, opening the digital newspaper on his tablet. "Scrambled eggs again, honey?" he commented lightly as Claire placed a plate in front of him. "Let's have sandwiches sometime. I am tired of eggs." Claire held her breath. How easily this man switched roles from a panicked husband to a manipulative one, and now to a demanding one, all within hours. "Okay, Mark. I am sorry. We are out of bread," Claire replied curtly. She did not dare to look him in the eyes. She was afraid her gaze would betray the hatred now flourishing in her heart. Leo ran out of his room with his school tie still crooked. "Morning, Dad. Morning, Mom," he chirped happily. The boy immediately hugged Mark's leg. "Morning, my little champion." Mark lifted Leo onto his lap, kissing his son's cheek with great affection. The sight caused a sharp pain in Claire's chest. Mark was a good father, at least in Leo's eyes. How could this loving father figure be the same man who was with another woman in a hotel room last night? Claire turned away, busying herself with stirring her tea. She could not bear to watch this charade of a happy family. "Oh, by the way, honey," Mark said while chewing his eggs, "I will be unreachable this afternoon. There is a full board meeting from 11 a.m. until late. My phone will definitely be off. So, do not call." Claire nodded slowly. "Okay, Mark." She knew the board meetings were usually on Mondays, and even if there was an emergency meeting, Mark never turned off his phone. He just silenced it. This excuse was too cliché. The board meeting was just a new code for meeting Sarah. After Mark and Leo left, Mark would drop Leo at school before heading to the office. The house fell silent again, a suffocating silence. Claire felt the walls of her own home closing in on her. She needed certainty. She needed irrefutable proof, not just a short video and a provocative text message. Claire went into the master bedroom. The scent of Mark's cologne lingered, mixed with a faint, foreign scent, the perfume of the same woman she had smelled in the hotel hallway. Claire opened Mark's closet. She rummaged through the pockets of the suit he had just tossed into the laundry hamper. Empty. She turned to Mark's desk in the corner of the room. The drawers were locked. Of course! For the past 3 months, Mark had always locked his desk drawers, citing confidential office documents. Claire used to believe him. Now she knew there was a secret buried there. Claire remembered something. A spare key. Mark had once hidden a spare key to the drawer inside his old broken watch box on the top shelf of the closet. Claire climbed onto a small chair, fumbling around the dusty top of the closet. Her fingers touched a black velvet box. Her heart pounded as she opened it. Bingo. The small silver key was still there, tucked behind the watch cushion. With trembling hands, Claire unlocked the desk drawer. At first glance, its contents seemed ordinary. Stacks of project files, some folders, and stationery. But Claire was not a fool. She lifted the bottom stack of files. There, she found it. Not romantic photos, not love letters, but something far more terrifying for her and Leo's future. A red folder marked Notary. Inside was a copy of the deed to this house, a house inherited from Claire's late father, which was then put in both their names after marriage as a sign of trust. Next to the deed was a loan agreement, with the deed as collateral. The amount was staggering, $500,000. The date of disbursement was 2 weeks ago. Claire covered her mouth with her hand to stifle a scream. What was that much money for? Mark's business was doing well. There were no urgent needs. Claire's eyes moved to the next page. A brochure for a luxury condominium in Chicago's River North neighborhood. On the brochure was Mark's handwriting in blue ink. Unit 12B, DP paid, payment via wire transfer. And tucked beneath the brochure was a bank transfer receipt. Recipient, River North Properties LLC. Sender, Mark Thompson. Amount, $100,000. The down payment. The name of the unit's buyer listed on the reservation form? Sarah Anderson. Claire's world collapsed. The ceiling seemed to fall and crush her. Mark had not just betrayed her love, he had robbed her. This house, the only inheritance from her parents, the place where she grew up, had been secretly mortgaged to buy a palace for his mistress. Claire sank to the floor, hugging her knees beside the cursed desk. She no longer cried. Her tears had run dry. All that remained was a coldness that crept from her toes to the top of her head. Her heart, once cracked, now shattered into dust. The pain of being cheated on was sharp, but the pain of being financially betrayed, of her son's future being gambled away, was lethal. Mark was no longer her husband. Mark was the enemy. An enemy who lived under the same roof, slept in the same bed, and ate at the same table. In the midst of that painful silence, a new awareness slowly dawned on Claire. If she continued to cry, she would lose everything. The house would be foreclosed on if Mark defaulted. Leo would be left with nothing. Sarah would be laughing in her new condo, bought with money from Claire's father's inheritance. Claire lifted her face. Her eyes were swollen, but her gaze was sharp and hard. She took her phone and photographed every document, one by one, with a hand that was now steady. No more trembling, no more doubt. "You want to play with fire, Mark?" Claire whispered to the empty room. Her voice was hoarse but full of menace. "Fine. I will make sure you burn to ashes." Claire put the drawer back in order, locked it, and returned the spare key to its hiding place. She stood and looked at her reflection in the vanity mirror. The woman in the mirror looked a mess, but there was a new flame in her eyes. The flame of a mother whose nest had been threatened. Today, Claire would not stay home. She had a new destination, the law office of Mr. Hayes, her late father's best friend. The familiar scent of old paper and wood polish greeted Claire as she stepped into Mr. Hayes's office. The room hadn't changed since she was last there with her father 5 years ago to handle his will. Towering bookshelves filled with thick law books lined the walls, silent witnesses to 1,000 human disputes. Mr. Hayes, a man in his late 60s with a full head of white hair, peered at the photos of the documents Claire had just printed, his glasses perched on the end of his nose. His brow was deeply furrowed. He slowly took off his glasses and massaged the bridge of his nose, a gesture that made Claire's stomach churn. It was not a good news gesture. "This is complicated, Claire." Mr. Hayes's voice was grave, breaking the torturous silence. "Very complicated." Claire clutched her handbag in her lap. "The house was my father's inheritance, Mr. Hayes. The deed was transferred to both our names after we got married, but it was originally my father's. How could Mark take out a loan against it without my signature in front of a notary? He could if the deed is in both your names, and he either forged your signature or—" Mr. Hayes pointed to one of the photocopied pages. "He used a power of attorney that you might have signed without realizing it. Do you remember signing any papers Mark gave you amidst a stack of other documents, maybe for taxes or insurance?" Claire was silent, her memory racing. Mark often brought stacks of papers home. "Just some routine paperwork, honey. Sign here, here, and here." Claire had always complied. She believed her husband was her protector, not a thief in the night. The weight of her own foolishness felt like a slap in the face. "And this debt?" Mr. Hayes tapped the loan agreement. "This is a home equity line of credit. If Mark defaults, the bank has the right to foreclose on the house. And if you file for divorce now, emotionally satisfying as it may be, this debt could be considered marital debt since it was incurred during the marriage. You could walk away from this marriage a poor divorcee, sharing the burden of your husband's debt." Claire's tears fell again, this time not from sadness, but from a gripping fear. She imagined herself and Leo being evicted, homeless on the streets, while Mark and Sarah enjoyed their new life in their new condo. "So, what do I do, Mr. Hayes?" she asked, her voice filled with despair. Mr. Hayes leaned forward, his gaze sharp, like a general giving battle instructions. "You have to hold on. Do not confront him yet. Do not let him know you know about the deed. We need time to gather evidence that the loan money was not used for the family's benefit, but for—" Mr. Hayes glanced disdainfully at the condo transfer receipt, "a third party." "Hold on?" Claire repeated softly. "You're asking me to play dumb in front of the man who has trampled all over my dignity?" "Yes. Be the best actress of your life, for your son's sake," Mr. Hayes stated firmly. "Let him feel secure. Let him get careless. Gather more evidence of his affair. Record conversations. Find out his account information. Once we have enough proof, we strike back, civilly and criminally. We can try to invalidate the loan due to fraud or sue him for embezzlement within the marriage. But until that day comes, you have to swallow your pain whole." The drive home felt like a journey into hell. The overcast Chicago sky seemed to reflect the state of Claire's heart. Walking back into the house that had always been her sanctuary now felt like entering a prison. Every corner of the house reminded her of Mark's betrayal. The sofa where they watched TV, the dining table where they shared stories, everything felt tainted. That night, the real test began. Mark came home early, around 7 p.m. He brought a box of gourmet donuts, Claire's favorite, as if a $30 box of pastries could atone for the sin of an affair and the theft of a $500,000 asset. "Evening, honey," Mark said cheerfully as he entered the living room. He glanced at Claire cautiously, trying to gauge her mood. "Still mad about the other day?" Claire was folding laundry on the sofa. Her heart was pounding. Mr. Hayes's words echoed in her ears. "Be the best actress." Claire took a deep breath and forced the corners of her lips to curve upwards. The smile felt stiff, painful, like glue pulling at her skin. "No, not anymore, Mark," she replied softly. She stood and took the donut box from his hand. "I am sorry. I was just really emotional the other day. It must be my period. I get sensitive." Mark's eyes lit up. He looked immensely relieved. The suspicion on his face vanished instantly. He thought his gaslighting tactics had worked. His foolish wife was back to normal. "That is my girl." Mark pulled Claire into a hug. Her body tensed as she felt his chest against hers. The smell of his cologne mixed with his sweat made her stomach churn. She wanted to vomit. She wanted to push this man away and spit in his face. But Claire held back. She let him hug her, while her hands clenched into tight fists at her sides, her nails digging into her palms. I am sorry too if I made you misunderstand, Mark whispered in her ear. A fake apology that sounded disgusting. I promise I will be more careful around my female colleagues, so you do not have to worry. Liar, Claire's mind screamed. The night passed in slow torture. Claire had to serve Mark dinner, listen to his boastful stories about the office, and pretend to laugh at his jokes. Every second was agonizing. Claire felt like she was prostituting her own soul for the sake of a survival strategy. The climax came at bedtime. When Mark pulled his body close under the covers and tried to touch her, Claire reflexively pushed him away gently. I cannot, Mark. I am on my period. She excused herself quickly, shifting to the edge of the bed with her back to him. Oh, I forgot, Mark grumbled in disappointment, then rolled over and was snoring within minutes. Claire could not sleep. She stared into the darkness of the room, listening to the rhythmic sound of her husband's snores. Her tears flowed silently again, soaking her pillow. She felt dirty. She felt weak. She was alone in this house, holding a secret that was crushing her bones. There was nowhere to turn. Not to her mother, for fear of giving her a heart attack. Not to the neighbors, out of shame. Only silence was her companion. 3 days passed in torturous pretense. Claire thought she was starting to get used to the pain. Until Friday afternoon, when Mark sent a text. Mark, hey honey, can you make something special for dinner tonight? Your specialty, the slow-braised short ribs and creamy polenta. Claire replied quickly. Why the special occasion, Mark? Mark, the core project team is stopping by the house for a bit to finalize the presentation for tomorrow. A little celebration, too. It is just 4 people. Please, honey. I want them to know what an amazing cook my wife is. Claire's blood ran cold. The core project team. That meant, who is coming, Mark? Mark. Mr. Daniels, Kevin, Jessica, and Sarah. Got to go. I am driving. See you at home. The phone nearly fell from Claire's hand. Sarah. Mark had the audacity to bring that woman to this house, into the sanctuary whose deed he had stolen, to the dining table where Claire fed their son, Leo. What kind of nerve was this? Or was this the ultimate form of humiliation, forcing the legal wife to serve her husband's mistress in her own home? Claire trembled in the kitchen. She stared at the beef ribs she had just taken out of the refrigerator. A kitchen knife glinted on the cutting board. Her emotions were a storm of wanting to burn the house down or run as far away as possible. But the image of Leo playing with his Legos in the living room held her back. She could not lose. If Sarah dared to set foot in here, Claire would be ready for her. Claire cooked with the fire of rage in her chest. She seasoned the ribs, not with love, but with vengeance. She dressed carefully, putting on her best dress, elegant but modest, and covered her pale face with foundation and a bold maroon lipstick. She had to look perfect. She would not let Sarah see her as a frumpy, defeated wife. At 7 p.m., the doorbell rang. I will get it, Mark called out, already waiting in the living room. Claire stood in the doorway between the kitchen and the living room. She watched the front door open. The cheerful chatter of guests filled the air. Good evening, Mark. Wow, what a lovely home. And among the masculine voices, she heard a sweet, familiar one. Evening, boss. Sorry to interrupt your evening. Sarah stepped inside. She wore a tight white blouse and a pencil skirt that ended above her knees, a stark contrast to Claire's conservative style. Her face was radiant with confidence. Her eyes scanned the room as if inspecting her future property, until her gaze landed on Claire, who stood frozen in the distance. Sarah smiled, the same smirk from the text message, a smile of victory. Oh, there is Mrs. Thompson, she greeted in a deliberately friendly tone, loud enough for everyone to hear. How are you? Still prone to misunderstandings? Sarah let out a small laugh, followed by an awkward chuckle from Mark. The other guests, oblivious, just smiled politely. Claire gripped the doorframe, her nails nearly breaking. The uninvited guest had entered the nest, and Claire knew that tonight she would have to serve coffee to the woman who wanted to steal her life without being allowed to pour poison into it. Not yet. The clinking of silverware against porcelain plates sounded unnervingly loud in the usually quiet dining room. The rich aroma of the slow-braised short ribs and savory polenta filled the air, mingling with the overpowering scent of Sarah's perfume. She was seated directly to Mark's right, a position that should have belonged to the lady of the house. But tonight, Claire relented. She chose to sit at the head of the table, near the kitchen, positioning herself like a waitress, ready to refill any empty glass. "Wow, these short ribs are incredible, Mrs. Thompson," praised Mr. Daniels, the portly project lead. "The meat is so tender, the flavor is perfect. Mark, you are a lucky man to have a wife who can cook like this." Claire managed a thin, formal smile. "Please have some more, sir. There is plenty." "Of course he is, sir," Sarah interjected suddenly. She put down her fork and looked at Mark with an overtly adoring gaze. "But I think this might be a little too rich for Mark. You know he has acid reflux." "The sauce should not have been so heavy, Mrs. Thompson. It might upset his stomach." Claire froze. Her hand, in the midst of pouring water into another guest's glass, stopped midair. This woman's audacity was beyond belief. In Claire's house, eating Claire's cooking, she was criticizing how Claire cared for her own husband. Mark looked uncomfortable. He cleared his throat loudly. "It is fine, Sarah. It is delicious." "Do not be like that, Mark," Sarah cut in again. This time, she took a napkin and dabbed at the corner of Mark's mouth, where a tiny bit of sauce lingered. The gesture was so natural, as if they were a married couple and Claire was just a spectator. "Your health is a company asset, you know. If you get sick, who will lead the project?" The atmosphere at the table turned awkward. Mr. Daniels and the other colleagues exchanged glances, sensing the inappropriate intimacy. But no one dared to speak up. They all knew Sarah was the boss's favorite. Claire placed the water pitcher down with a slightly too loud thud. It was enough to make Mark flinch. "Excuse me," Claire said flatly. "Please, continue. I am just going to the kitchen to get the fruit platter." Claire turned and walked quickly to the kitchen. Her chest was heaving. She needed space to breathe. She had to get away from that disgusting scene before she lost control and poured hot soup onto Sarah's flawless face. In the kitchen, Claire stood at the sink, letting the faucet run at full blast to mask the sound of her ragged breaths. She gripped the edge of the sink tightly. "Patience, Claire, patience. Remember, Leo, remember the house deed." Suddenly, she heard hurried footsteps approaching the kitchen. Not Mark's heavy tread, but the click-clack of high heels on the tile floor. Claire turned off the water and looked up. Sarah burst into the kitchen, her face pale. Without a word, she rushed to the sink next to Claire, bent over, and vomited everything she had eaten. The sound of her retching was painful. Her body shook violently. The scent of her expensive perfume was instantly overpowered by the smell of vomit. Claire took a step back, her brow furrowed. Was it food poisoning? Unlikely. All the ingredients were fresh, and the other guests were fine. Mark rushed into the kitchen, his face a mask of panic. He ignored Claire, who stood frozen in the corner. He went straight to Sarah, gently massaging the back of her neck. "What is wrong? Nauseous again?" he asked, his voice thick with an excessive amount of concern. Sarah nodded weakly, rinsing her mouth with water. Her breath came in ragged gasps. "Yes, Mark. The smell of the ribs was too strong. I could not handle the spices. My stomach turned immediately." Claire sharpened her hearing. "Nausea from a strong smell during dinner." "Oh, God," Mark hissed quietly, almost a whisper, but still audible to Claire in the small room. "I told you not to force yourself to eat if you did not feel like it." "Poor thing," Mark trailed off. His eyes flickered down to Sarah's stomach, hidden by her loose blouse, and then glanced warily at Claire. Mark realized Claire was there. He immediately changed his tone to a formal one. Claire, could you please get some ginger ale or warm water? I think Sarah has an upset stomach. Maybe the AC in here is too cold." Claire did not move. Her eyes were fixed on Mark's hand, still wrapped protectively around Sarah's waist, and then she saw something else. Sarah's hand, instinctively stroking her own lower abdomen as the nausea subsided, a mother's instinctual gesture. The world around Claire seemed to stop spinning for a second time. The puzzle pieces clicked perfectly into place in her mind. Sarah's recent preference for loose-fitting clothes, her pale face without heavy makeup, her nausea at the smell of strong food, and Mark's desperation to get a large sum of cash from the house deed. Sarah was pregnant. She was not just a mistress. This woman was carrying Mark's child. "Claire," Mark called again, this time with impatience in his voice. "What are you doing just standing there? Get some warm water. Claire snapped back to reality. She looked at Mark with an unreadable expression. There was shock, disgust, but underneath it all, an immense sorrow. Her husband had gotten another woman pregnant and had now brought that woman and their unborn child into their legal home. "Yes, Mark," Claire replied, her voice distant, as if it belonged to someone else. Claire turned toward the water dispenser. Her hand shook violently as she poured the hot water. Her mind was racing. If Sarah was pregnant, then her and Leo's position was in grave danger. Mark did not just need money for an apartment. He needed money to finance his new family. He needed capital to start a new life. And that capital was being taken from the roof over Leo's head. Claire handed the glass to Mark, avoiding contact with his fingers. "Thanks." Mark gave it to Sarah. "Drink this slowly." "Thank you, Mrs. Thompson," Sarah said weakly. Her face was still pale, but there was a strange glint in her eyes as she looked at Claire. A glint of guilt? No, it was a glint of challenge, as if she were saying, "I have something more valuable to Mark than you do." "Maybe you should rest in the guest room for a while," Mark suggested. "I will take you." "No, Mark, that is okay. It would be rude to the other guests," Sarah refused sweetly. "I will just sit on the back patio for a minute and get some fresh air. It is stuffy in here." "Okay, I will join you on the patio." The two of them walked out through the glass door connecting the kitchen to the backyard, leaving Claire alone in the messy kitchen. Claire waited a few seconds. After making sure they were outside, she crept toward the slightly open kitchen window. A thin curtain obscured her view, but their voices carried clearly in the quiet night. "You were so careless, Sarah." Mark's voice was annoyed but soft. "What if Claire suspects something?" "Let her suspect," Sarah retorted, her voice no longer weak. "Besides, when are you going to be firm with her?" "My belly is getting bigger. The doctor said the pregnancy is strong, but I do not want our baby born without a clear status. I do not want to give birth hiding in some apartment." Boom! The confession hit Claire's ears harder than any physical slap. "Our baby." "Just be patient, honey," Mark coaxed. "I am working on it. That house deed is worth a lot. As soon as the full amount is released from the bank, I will pay off your condo. The rest will be for our secret wedding. After that, I will handle the divorce with Claire. If I divorce her now, the asset division will be a mess. Everything could be frozen. Do you want us to start our lives struggling? Promise me. Do not take too long," Sarah whined. "I do not want our son to be confused about who his father is." "A son?" Claire clamped both hands over her mouth, stifling a sob that threatened to erupt. They had planned everything so meticulously. Mark was delaying the divorce not because he still loved her, but to secure the assets first. He wanted to impoverish Claire and Leo before throwing them out. Claire backed away from the window slowly. Her legs were weak, but her heart was ablaze. The sadness was completely gone, incinerated by the fury of a mother whose child was about to be wronged. They wanted a son. They wanted her father's inheritance. "Over my dead body," Claire thought. Claire returned to the dining room, her face now a blank mask. She saw Sarah's purse lying on the empty chair next to Mark's, an expensive designer bag with its zipper slightly open. Claire's eyes caught something inside. A small, pink booklet. A prenatal care booklet. Without a second thought, while the other guests were busy chatting in the living room and Mark was still on the patio, Claire grabbed her phone. With quick, practiced movements, she took a photo of the bag, a photo of the booklet peeking out, and then sat back down as if nothing had happened. Tonight, Claire had acquired her nuclear weapon. Mr. Hayes was right. She had to hold on a little longer. But a defensive strategy was not enough. Claire had to start attacking, and her first strike would be aimed at Mark's weakest points, his reputation and his finances. When Mark and Sarah came back inside, looking refreshed, Claire greeted them with a smile. The sweetest, most terrifying smile she had ever given. "Feeling better, Sarah?" Claire asked gently. "Be more careful next time. Do not get too tired. We would not want the little one inside to get sick too." Sarah and Mark's faces instantly tensed. Mark glared at his wife. Did Claire know, or was that just a polite comment about an upset stomach? Claire savored the fear in their eyes. "I mean your internal organs, of course," Claire continued calmly, pouring tea. "The stomach is so sensitive." "Right, Mark? The morning sun pierced through the blinds, but this time its light no longer stung Claire's swollen eyes. There were no more swollen eyes. This morning, Claire woke before the sun. She stood in front of the large mirror in her bedroom, studying her reflection. The woman in the mirror was no longer the one who cried in the hotel hallway, no longer the one who trembled behind the kitchen window. Claire took a pair of scissors from her vanity drawer. With a cold gaze and a steady hand, she cut her long hair, which she had kept because Mark liked it. Snip, snip. Strands of dark hair fell to the floor. Now her hair was shoulder length, giving her a sharp, fresh, and dangerous look. She applied minimal but defined makeup, perfectly concealing the dark circles under her eyes. Today, Claire stopped being a victim. Today, she became a player. After ensuring Leo was off to school with his regular carpool, Claire did not stay home. She put on an old blazer from her working days before she was married and drove through the Chicago traffic to the bank branch where the house deed was being held. Armed with an old power of attorney from her father that was still valid for inheritance matters, and of course, her status as the rightful co-owner of the property, Claire insisted on meeting the branch manager. As luck would have it, Mr. Harris, the manager, had been a priority client of her late father's. "I was surprised, Claire," Mr. Harris said, shuffling through papers on his desk. He looked uncomfortable. "Mr. Thompson told us you were seriously ill and needed funds for treatment in Singapore. That is why he was pushing for the loan to be disbursed as quickly as possible, using the house deed as collateral." Claire's jaw tightened. Seriously ill. Mark was a truly amoral bastard. He used his wife's life as an excuse to fund his mistress's condo. "I was sick for a while, sir. But I am better now," Claire replied calmly, hiding her roiling anger. "That is actually why I am here. I wanted to check on the status of the remaining disbursement. My husband said there were still some issues." "Oh, yes. The first 100,000 was disbursed last week. The remaining 400,000 is scheduled for 2 days from now. We are just waiting for a re-verification of your signature, as there was a slight discrepancy on the last document. Mr. Thompson said he would bring the papers to the hospital for you to sign." Claire smiled faintly. God was on her side. Mark had forged her signature, but he had been sloppy, and the bank had held the rest of the money. This was her opening. "Mr. Harris," Claire leaned forward, "can you do me a favor? Please put a hold on that disbursement. Say there is a system error or a central audit. Do not tell him I was here. Do not say you suspect the signature is forged. Just stall for as long as possible." Mr. Harris looked at her, confused. "But why? Do you not need the money?" "This is a family matter, sir, and it was my father's last wish. That house is not to be sold or mortgaged for the wrong reasons." Claire's voice trembled slightly, touching the old man's emotional side. "Please help me, sir, for my father's good name." Mr. Harris sighed and then nodded slowly. "All right, I will hold it, citing an internal audit, but I cannot hold it forever, Claire. 2 weeks at most." "2 weeks is enough," Claire said firmly. Leaving the bank, Claire drove straight to Mr. Hayes' office. She told him everything: Sarah's pregnancy, the serious illness excuse at the bank, and the plan for the final $400,000 disbursement. Mr. Hayes tapped his pen on his desk. His face was serious, but a spark of excitement glinted in his eyes. "Excellent. Your move at the bank was brilliant, Claire," he praised. "Now we have 2 weeks before Mark panics because the money is stuck. When he panics, he will get sloppy. We must exploit his panic." "Mr." Hayes opened a drawer and pulled out a blue folder. "You said Mark is afraid his assets will be frozen if he divorces now, right? That is why he is delaying until the condo is paid for?" "Yes, Mr. Hayes. He wants to secure the assets first. Then we will play on his fear." Mr. Hayes slid a document across the desk. "This is a draft of a postnuptial agreement. It states that the inherited house is the sole property of the wife, and any debt incurred by the husband is his personal responsibility. But we will package it differently." "What do you mean?" "We will make it seem like this agreement is Mark's idea to save his assets from seizure." Mr. Hayes smiled slyly. "You will tell Mark you heard a rumor that he is being targeted for a corporate or even an IRS audit because of his lavish lifestyle. Tell him the only way to protect the house from being seized if he gets into trouble is to legally transfer full ownership to you, as if you are separating your assets." Claire was silent, processing the plan. It was risky, but Mark was narcissistic and paranoid. He would be terrified of his career being ruined. If Claire could convince him this was to save his assets, he would surely agree. Make him feel like he is in control, Claire. Make him feel like you are the foolish wife who is willing to be a temporary safe for his assets, Mr. Hayes continued. The moment he signs this in front of my notary, the house is safe. And that $500,000 debt automatically becomes his personal debt, which cannot be secured by your house. Claire took the folder, her hands no longer trembling. Have the notary ready, Mr. Hayes. I will bring him to you. That afternoon, Claire went home with her strategy fully formed. She bought an expensive dress shirt and a new tie for Mark, a gift to smooth the way for her plan. When Mark came home, he was surprised by Claire's new look. The short hair, the fresh face, and the sweet smile that greeted him. You cut your hair, honey? Mark asked, surprised, but his eyes held a hint of admiration. Claire looked 10 years younger. Yes, Mark. To get rid of bad luck? She answered casually, handing him the gift. This is for you, so you will look even sharper for your presentations. Mark accepted the gift, looking puzzled. He was suspicious, but Claire's sweet demeanor disarmed him. You are not still angry about the other night? Claire shook her head. She moved closer, straightening his collar. Her heart pounded, not with love, but with adrenaline. I have been thinking, being angry is pointless. You work so hard for us. I should be supporting you. Claire led Mark to the sofa and served him coffee. She put on a worried expression. But Mark, I heard some unsettling gossip at a friend's luncheon today, she began, lowering her voice. Gossip about what? Mark sipped his coffee. They are saying there is a huge internal audit coming from corporate. My friend, Susan, said her husband is being investigated because of some suspicious transactions in his personal accounts. They are talking about freezing his assets. Mark choked on his coffee. Cough! Where did you hear that? His face went pale. The rumors of an audit were indeed circulating at his office, and Mark knew he had been skimming from smaller project budgets, aside from the house deed issue. From the executive wives group chat, Claire lied smoothly. Mark, I am scared. Our house is in both our names. If you get audited, my father's house could be seized too, right? Mark was silent, his eyes darting around. Fear began to creep into his mind. If he was audited, and they found a $500,000 loan against the house, he was finished. So, what are they saying is the solution? Mark asked carefully. Well, they said. Claire lowered her voice as if sharing a state secret. A lot of them are quickly drawing up postnuptial agreements. They are transferring all the assets into the wives' names. That way, if the husband gets into legal trouble, the wife's assets cannot be touched. Then, when the storm passes, they can transfer them back. Claire looked into Mark's eyes with a naive gaze. I do not really understand the law, Mark, but I am terrified of us ending up homeless if the house is taken. Should we do something like that? Just pretend the house is 100% mine? To keep it safe from your office audit? Mark stared at Claire. His mind raced. The idea sounded plausible, even brilliant. If the house was fully in Claire's name via a postnup, auditors could not touch it. And since Claire was his foolish, obedient wife, Mark was sure he could get it back any time he wanted. Mark broke into a wide smile. He felt like he had been handed a divine solution. He did not realize his neck had just slipped into the noose his wife had set. You are smarter than you look, honey, Mark said, stroking Claire's new hair. Great idea. We have to protect our assets. When can we get this done? Coincidentally, Mr. Hayes, my dad's friend, can do it quickly. Tomorrow afternoon? Claire offered. Okay, tomorrow afternoon we will go, Mark decided. Excellent, Claire smiled sweetly. I got you. But just as Mark was about to get up for a shower, his phone, lying on the table, buzzed. A text notification lit up the screen. Claire glanced at it, and her heart nearly stopped. The message was from Sarah. Sarah, Mark, this is bad. Someone from the bank called me. They said the $400K disbursement is on hold because of a report of a forged signature. They are going to call the police if you do not come in tomorrow morning to clarify. Mark, who had just stood up, read the message on the still-lit screen. His face went from pale to gray. He turned slowly to look at Claire. His gaze was no longer that of a husband, but of a cornered, savage animal. "Claire," Mark's voice was a low growl, "were you at the bank today?" The air in the living room suddenly felt paper-thin, ready to tear at the slightest wrong move. Mark's face was beet red, the veins in his neck bulging like steel cables. He grabbed Claire's upper arm roughly, making her wince in pain. "Answer me honestly. Did you go to the bank to report me?" Mark yelled. His breath was ragged, smelling of coffee and stomach acid. "You want to send your own husband to prison? Huh?" Claire didn't fight the grip. She let the pain in her arm fuel her performance. She put on a terrified expression, crocodile tears welling in her eyes. She had to play this perfectly. One wrong move, and Mark could become physically violent. "You are hurting me, Mark! Let go!" Claire cried, her voice trembling. "I went there to save you." Mark's grip loosened slightly, but he didn't let go. "Save me from what?" The bank said there was a report of a forged signature. "It wasn't a report, Mark. It was a question." Claire began to spin her story quickly, her mind working furiously under pressure. "I went to the bank to print our account statements. I wanted to make sure our savings were safe in case your accounts really were frozen because of that tax audit. Then the customer service guy just happened to check our credit status. He was the one who got suspicious that the signature on the loan application was different from the one on my driver's license." Claire looked directly into Mark's eyes, projecting a convincing innocence. "I panicked, Mark. I told him it was real. I told him I signed it. But the bank guy didn't believe me. He said he was going to escalate it to the legal department for verification. I was so scared you'd be arrested. That's why I came straight home to find a solution with Mr. Hayes." Mark was stunned. His eyes blinked, searching for a lie in his wife's face. But Claire's story was plausible. A panicked, foolish Claire, worried about an audit, going to the bank and accidentally raising suspicion. "So you didn't report me?" Mark asked, his voice lowering, though still full of suspicion. "My God, Mark, you are Leo's father. Why would I want to see you in prison?" Claire sobbed, the tears flowing easily this time, fueled by her deep-seated hatred. "I just want us to be safe. The house safe, you safe." Mark released his grip. He took a step back, rubbing his face roughly. "So what now? If the bank calls the police tomorrow, I'm finished, Claire. That's document forgery. I could be fired and go to jail." Claire placed a hand on Mark's shoulder. It was time to spring the trap. "That's what Mr. Hayes' idea is for, Mark," she whispered urgently. "We go to the notary first thing tomorrow morning. We sign the postnuptial and a personal debt acknowledgement. It will state that the house officially becomes mine, but that I gave you full authority to use it as collateral. So, your signature is retroactively validated by the asset owner through a notarized document." Claire looked at her husband with a pleading expression. "Mr. Hayes said if we have that notarized document, the bank can't press criminal charges. The case becomes a simple civil matter. And since I, the owner of the house, have agreed, the police can't get involved. You'll be free, Mark." Mark was silent for a long time. His panicked mind tried to process the convoluted legal logic, which was, in fact, completely misleading. In his desperation, Claire's solution sounded like the only lifeboat in a storm. "Are you sure, Mr. Hayes can arrange that by tomorrow?" Mark asked. "I'm sure. Mr. Hayes was Dad's best friend. He'll help us," Claire answered confidently. That night, Mark didn't sleep well. He paced back and forth in the bedroom, occasionally replying to texts from a frantic Sarah. Meanwhile, Claire slept with her back to her husband, a faint smile on her face. She slept soundly. The next morning, the atmosphere at the Hayes and Associates law firm felt formal and cold. Mr. Hayes sat behind his large desk, presenting a thick, notarized document. He played his part perfectly serious, slightly concerned, but professional. "This is the best solution to protect Mr. Thompson from criminal banking charges and the tax audit," Mr. Hayes explained, pointing to various clauses. "By signing this, Mr. Thompson acknowledges that the house deed is the absolute right of Mrs. Thompson. In return, Mrs. Thompson is making a statement that she has no objection to the property being used as collateral. Therefore, the element of forgery is nullified." Mark skimmed the document. The language was dense and convoluted. His mind was focused on only one thing: staying out of jail. "But this can be reversed, right, Mr. Hayes, once the audit is over?" Mark asked doubtfully. Of course. This is an agreement between a husband and wife. It can be amended at any time, as long as both parties agree," Mr. Hayes replied casually. The phrase, "as long as both parties agree," was uttered quickly and faintly. Mark missed the trap. If Claire didn't agree later, the agreement was permanent. Without reading more carefully, Mark picked up a pen. That hand, the same one that had held Sarah, now signed his name above the seal. Scratch, scratch, done. Claire co-signed with a steady hand. "It's official, Mr. Hayes said, banging an imaginary gavel. He handed a copy of the deed to Claire. "The house is securely in your hands, Mrs. Thompson. And Mr. Thompson," Mr. Hayes looked at Mark sharply, "I will have a copy of this sent to the bank this afternoon, as legal proof. The police will not be visiting you." Mark let out a long, deep breath of relief. He leaned back in his chair, feeling a heavy weight lift from his shoulders. He was safe. The house was safe, he thought. And the $400,000 disbursement would surely come through now that this was sorted. Sarah would be happy. Claire glanced at her husband. "Enjoy your last breath of relief, Mark." Leaving the law office, Mark immediately put his arm around Claire. "Thank you, honey. You really are the most understanding wife. I'm sorry I was so rough last night." "It's okay, Mark. I understand you were panicked," Claire replied flatly. "Are you heading straight to the office?" "Yeah. I have to let the project team know that the funding issue is resolved." "Oh, hey, Claire!" Mark's face lit up. "Since this mess is over and my project is back on track, how about this Saturday we host a party to celebrate my promotion and our 5th wedding anniversary? We can invite all our family and friends from the office." Claire was taken aback. Wedding anniversary. Did Mark remember? Or was he just using it as an excuse to show off his fake success? "Sure, Mark. That's a great idea," Claire replied. A wicked, brilliant plan flashed through her mind. "Okay, I'll handle the catering and the invitations. We'll have a garden party at the house. I want to invite the CEO, too. I want him to see what a harmonious family we have. It's a plus for next year's review." Mark got into his car, whistling. He left Claire standing on the sidewalk. Claire took out her phone. She called Mr. Harris, the bank manager. "Hello, Mr. Harris. This is Claire Thompson. Yes, the notarized document is done." "No, sir. Please listen to my instructions carefully. This document is actually to cancel the collateral agreement. Because the house is now 100% mine, and I do not approve of my husband's debt. Please cancel the $400,000 disbursement permanently, and please do not inform my husband until next Monday." "Understood, Mrs. Thompson. We will freeze the funds," Mr. Harris replied from the other end. Claire hung up. Mark was throwing a celebration party on Saturday, a party where he would show off his successful career and harmonious family, a party where Sarah would undoubtedly show up in her prettiest dress. It was the perfect stage. The stage for the death of Mark Thompson's pride. Claire smiled. It was not a fake smile anymore. It was the smile of an executioner. "All right, Mark. Let's have a party," she murmured to the wind. Saturday arrived with a clear sky, as if the universe itself was blessing the grandest play to be staged that evening. The backyard, usually quiet, had been transformed into a lavish garden party. String lights were wrapped around the trunk of the old oak tree. Buffet tables with crisp white tablecloths were lined up, and the aroma of a roasting pig in the corner tantalized the guests as they arrived. Mark stood in the center of the crowd, a glass of iced tea in his hand, looking dapper in a designer linen shirt. His face was beaming. His smile never wavered as he greeted colleagues and relatives. He felt like he was on top of the world. The legal troubles were over, he thought. The $400,000 would be in his account on Monday, he thought, and tonight he would be lauded as the next director of operations in front of the CEO. Claire stood by his side, elegant in a dark blue sheath dress that hugged her slender figure. Her short hair was styled perfectly, showing off her neck, adorned with a simple diamond-like necklace. The real one had been sold by Mark long ago to cover his trading losses. Claire smiled, greeted guests warmly, playing her part as the perfect trophy wife. "Congratulations, Mark. What a beautiful couple," complimented the CEO's wife, who arrived with her husband. "Thank you, ma'am." "It's all thanks to my wife's prayers," Mark replied humbly, pulling Claire closer by the waist. Claire just nodded, suppressing the nausea in her stomach. "Enjoy it, Mark. This stage is about to collapse." In another corner, near the drink table, stood Sarah. She wore a loose, pastel-colored baby doll dress, camouflaging her growing belly. She looked pretty but anxious. Her eyes kept darting toward Mark and Claire. A burning envy flared as she watched Mark embrace his wife in public, while she could only stand on the sidelines as a mere staff member. The party went smoothly. Acoustic music played softly. At 8 p.m., the MC, a chatty HR staffer, took to a small stage in front of a giant white projector screen. "All right, ladies and gentlemen, the time has come to hear a few words from the man of the hour, Mr. Mark Thompson," the MC announced to a round of applause. Mark walked onto the stage confidently. He took the microphone, took a breath, and addressed the audience with an air of authority. "Good evening, Mr. Thompson, my dear colleagues and beloved family," Mark began, his voice resonant and steady. "Tonight is not just a celebration of my promotion, but also the celebration of my 5-year anniversary with the incredible woman over there, Claire." All eyes turned to Claire. Mark pointed to her dramatically. "Claire is the pillar of our home. She is a patient, supportive woman who has always stood by me, no matter what. Even when storms came, she stood tall to protect this family. Thank you, honey." Applause erupted again. A few of the wives dabbed at their eyes, moved by his crocodile tears speech. Claire smiled faintly and walked slowly onto the stage to stand beside her husband. "Thank you, Mark," Claire said softly, taking the microphone. "I also want to give a special gift to Mark, and also to Sarah, who has helped my husband so much by working overtime day and night." Mark frowned. "Sarah? Why mention Sarah's name?" Sarah, who was drinking in the corner, choked slightly. "As a token of my gratitude," Claire continued, her voice now cold and sharp, a stark contrast to the sweet smile on her lips, "I have prepared a short video of memories, a documentation of honesty, which is so rare these days." Claire gave a signal to the projector operator, a distant cousin she had specifically instructed. "Please play it." The garden lights dimmed. Everyone's attention was on the large white screen. Mark smiled, thinking it was a compilation of their vacation photos or wedding pictures. But what appeared on the screen was not a wedding photo. It was a shaky video recording. A hotel hallway with maroon carpet. The sound of Claire's heavy breathing filled the high-quality garden speakers. Knock, knock, knock. The sound echoed like a judge's gavel. Mark's face went white. The CEO's glass stopped midair. A chilling silence fell over the party. On the screen, the door to room 303 opened. Mark's shocked face appeared. Then Sarah's, peeking from behind him, wearing his dress shirt. Sarah's sweet voice came through clearly. "Who is it, babe? What is taking so long?" Gasps rippled through the crowd. Whispers turned into a roar. "Turn it off! Turn off the screen!" Mark screamed in panic. He lunged toward the operator, but Claire's cousin quickly locked the laptop and stepped back. The video changed. Now it showed photos of the banking documents, the house deed, the wire transfer receipt for the condo down payment in the name of Sarah Anderson, and the prenatal care booklet. Claire spoke into the microphone again, her voice calm but booming in the chaos. "Ladies and gentlemen, this is the overtime my husband has been working. Mortgaging my late father's house, the house where our son sleeps, to buy an apartment for his pregnant mistress." Sarah dropped her glass. It shattered on the grass, as shattered as her reputation. All eyes turned to her with disgust. The executive wives who had just been praising her now looked at her like she was dirt. Mark spun around to face Claire, his face crimson with rage and shame. "Claire, you are insane. You have ruined my career." "You ruined yourself, Mark," Claire retorted flatly. The CEO, Mr. Thompson, pushed through the crowd, his face dark with fury. He climbed onto the stage, snatched the microphone from Claire's hand, and stared at Mark with a murderous look. "Mark Thompson!" The CEO's voice trembled with emotion. "I do not tolerate employees with compromised integrity. Embezzling family assets, sleeping with your subordinate. You are a disgrace to this company." "Sir, this is a misunderstanding, sir. It is all fake," Mark pleaded, falling to his knees before his boss. "Silence. Starting Monday, do not set foot in the office again. Your termination letter will be sent tomorrow. And Sarah, you are fired too, for cause." Mark collapsed onto the stage floor. His world had crumbled in minutes, his career, reputation, honor all gone. Claire looked down at her pathetic husband. She pulled a blue folder from behind the MC's podium. "And one more thing, Mark," Claire said, making him look up. "Remember that document you signed at the notary's office? The one you thought was to protect our assets from an audit?" Claire opened the folder, showing him the contents. It was a post-nuptial agreement acknowledging that this house and everything in it is 100% mine. "And because this house is mine, I canceled the $400,000 disbursement from the bank this morning." Mark's eyes bulged. "What? Canceled?" "Yes. So you have no money, Mark. You have no job. You have a $100,000 personal debt from the initial withdrawal, and you have a baby on the way to support." Hearing this, Sarah shrieked from the edge of the lawn. "Mark, you said the money was coming on Monday. What about my condo? The down payment is non-refundable." Claire smiled with satisfaction. She pointed to the wide-open gate of the house. "Now, please get out of my house. Take your mistress with you. Take your clothes. Do not take anything that was bought with my money or the money you stole from me." "Claire, how could you?" Mark whimpered, tears of frustration streaming down his face. He tried to grab her leg. "We are husband and wife, honey. Leo needs his father." Claire kicked his hand away gently. "Leo's father died in room 303, she said coldly. "Security, please drag this trash out." Two security guards, whom Claire had put on standby, rushed onto the stage and hauled away a struggling Mark and a wailing Sarah, dragging them out of the magnificent house's gates. The guests watched the expulsion with a mixture of horror and satisfaction. Claire stood tall on the stage, under the now bright lights. She was alone, but she had never felt so strong. She took a deep breath, inhaling the sweet air of freedom. But as she stepped down from the stage, she suddenly felt dizzy. The world spun for a moment, likely the effect of the adrenaline wearing off. She grabbed onto a tent pole for support. Mr. Hayes emerged from the crowd and patted her shoulder gently. "Well done, my dear. Your father would be so proud." "Thank you, Mr. Hayes," Claire whispered. "Now there is just one more chapter." "And what is that?" "Rebuilding these ruins into a new palace," Claire answered, placing a hand on her stomach, which suddenly felt nauseous. Wait, nausea. Claire did a quick mental calculation. The stress, the focus on revenge. She had completely forgotten that she herself was 2 weeks late. Could it be? 6 months had passed since that shocking night. Claire sat in a wicker chair on her back patio, enjoying the evening breeze that carried the scent of jasmine. In her hand, a warm cup of chamomile tea steamed, calming her nerves. The house felt different now. There was no more fear, no more shadows of lies. The walls themselves seemed to breathe a sigh of relief, just like their owner. Claire placed a hand on her stomach, which was now round and clearly visible beneath her loose, peach-colored maternity dress. Yes, her suspicion that night was correct. She was pregnant with her second child, the last seed of a ruined marriage. At first, Claire had cried, feeling like God was playing a cruel joke, giving her another blood tie to the man she despised. But as time went on, she realized this baby was innocent. This baby was hers, flesh and blood, whom she would raise to be a far more honorable person than his father. Leo's laughter came from the direction of the swimming pool. He was taking lessons with a new private coach. His face was cheerful, his cheeks rosy. Leo had already forgotten the sadness of his father leaving. Children have a sharp instinct. They know where true comfort lies. And for Leo, that comfort was with his mother, who now always had a genuine smile, not with his father, who was always busy with fake meetings. Claire picked up her phone. She opened her banking app. The numbers on the screen made her smile with relief. The premium catering business she started with her remaining savings and a loan from Mr. Hayes was thriving. Her story, which went viral without ever using real names, garnered sympathy from many influential women who became her clients. Claire was no longer a divorcee dependent on alimony. She was an independent businesswoman. Suddenly, a text notification appeared on her screen from an unknown number, but Claire recognized the last 4 digits. It was Mark's new number, the 5th one he had used after she blocked the previous 4. She didn't open it. She just read the preview on the lock screen. Unknown number. Claire, please answer. I'm sick. Sarah left me with the baby. She doesn't want to raise him without money. I got evicted from my rental for being 3 months behind. Can I borrow some money, or at least sleep in the garage? For Leo's sake. Claire, I'm his father. Claire snorted softly. She felt not an ounce of pity. Her heart had turned to stone for that man. From what she had heard through the grapevine, karma had been swift and brutal for Mark. After being fired for cause, his name was blacklisted in his industry. No reputable company would hire him. He and Sarah had lived in a shabby rental in a rough part of the city. His small severance package was quickly depleted by Sarah's expensive habits, and when the money ran out, so did the love. Sarah, who had only ever loved Mark's lavish lifestyle, showed her true colors. Endless fights were punctuated by the cries of their baby, who was born prematurely due to stress. And now, Sarah had left a bankrupt Mark with a newborn in his arms, no job, no home, no dignity. Claire imagined the once dapper Mark in his expensive suits, now probably sitting on a curb in shabby clothes, typing that pathetic, begging message with trembling hands. "Mom!" Leo's call broke her reverie. Claire looked up. Leo was running toward her, dripping wet, a towel around his neck. "Mom," the coach said, "I can do the freestyle stroke now. When the baby is born, I'm going to teach him how to swim, okay?" Leo said enthusiastically, stroking his mother's belly. Claire smiled, ruffling her son's wet hair. "Yes, sweetheart, you're going to be a great big brother, much better than any man I've ever known." "What are you looking at, Mom?" Leo glanced at the phone in her hand. Claire looked at the screen one last time. Mark's message was still there, waiting for a mercy that would never come. "It's nothing, honey. Just junk mail," Claire replied calmly. Her finger moved across the screen. Block. Delete. Claire placed the phone face down. She didn't need the past. She had a bright future right here. The house was hers again, completely. The deed was safe in a vault. Her heart was safe in its tranquility. Claire took another sip of her tea. The sun was setting, painting the sky in beautiful golden hues. For the first time in 5 years, Claire felt truly alive. She was no longer Mark's wife. She was Claire, mother to Leo, and soon to be mother of the baby in her womb. She took a deep breath, filling her lungs with the air of freedom, and exhaled slowly, and with it, the name Mark vanished from her life forever. The sky grew dark, but for Claire, the dawn was just beginning.